It's written out there. It's my team. It's my quarterback. And if you guys do that, man, it's unfair. We lost as a team.
Why is he crying? Okay, so why are you crying? Like, you're that hurt by the media making fun of your quarterback? All right, whatever. I'm Ryan DePaulo. This is our first episode ever. It's the CapFigure podcast. That was friend of the show, Terrell Owens, and friend to the show, the Dallas beat reporters. Off friend to the show, YouTube. And with me, as always, for the first time, is Tom. Hi, Tom.
Hey, what's going on? I'm Tom Mclaughlin. I'm the founder of CapFigure. I'm really glad to be here. We've been talking about this for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan and I, we love talking about front office, analytics, anything that's on the cutting edge of sports today, stuff that, we think that true sports fans want to hear, want to see. And honestly, I just don't think there's really content that hits home where we see that people want.
Right.
So that's why we're here.
I'd say that we've talked about over the years of our friendship that it's like there's like a base level of coverage, right? It's like every article, no matter how big of a fan you get, still only covers the basics. Like it doesn't get to like another level to some extent. You watch SportsCenter and it's just the same ABC story. Like it doesn't get more in depth than, oh, he's a good pass rusher. He has good, he walks a lot more. Like it's like there's not enough graduate level sports coverage is what I mean to say in a way.
Exactly. And so, we each have sort of a unique background, and I think it translates well to the stuff we're trying to cover. I worked on Wall Street for several years. And so being able to value companies, it's sort of a similar practice in terms of scouting, contract negotiations, free agency. It's a lot of the same sort of ideas, but obviously sports is much more interesting than covering nail companies in Michigan. So,
all right, so we decided that for this show we're mostly going to do baseball and football. Because that's our favorite sports. Eventually, one day we may have a CapFigure basketball podcast and hockey and bocce and women's broomball and stuff. But so we're gonna go through some quick news stories and then later talk about this awesome thing that Tom is doing with football. It's like the ultimate fantasy draft. But I'll tease that and leave that.
Yeah, leave it at that.
So. First news, David Wright is out 6 to 8 weeks with a it's a herniated disc after he has had spinal stenosis. 6 to 8 weeks, man.
Yeah, 6 to 8 weeks. And that's in an effort to avoid surgery. So, David Wright will refrain from baseball activity for the next 6 to 8 weeks. So at the earliest, you're looking at Wright making a rehab start at, say, 6 weeks. But it sounds like it's a lot worse than this. Honestly, I would be shocked if I saw Wright back in uniform, by even like mid-August. I think the Mets would consider, a bonus if he were there for the last month of the playoff stretch. What do you think?
I think that you don't know. I mean, last year he really busted his ass. Like I thought for sure the game we happened to be there when he got injured. Well, he hurt his hamstring, and then he realized he had stenosis. We were there when he stole a base and hurt his hamstring, and then realized he had stenosis, which is chronic. But he made it back, and nobody expected him to, and he made it back and contributed last year. So, I mean, whatever role his effort and desire to come back can play in this, I think helps because he really cares. But, it sucks. Like, he's definitely breaking down. But what about like the financials of it, the cheap-ass Mets?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the elephant in the room with the Mets right now. You're looking at an organization.
The Mets right always, not just right now.
The Mets are a large market team. They're the second biggest baseball team in the largest city in the world. The Mets have a huge fan base. They've put a team out there, but yet organizationally, ownership does not send the message that they're going to compete spending-wise with the Nationals, the Red Sox. And so, for a team that has that much money tied up in Wright, even though they're getting, some of that back as part of an insurance plan, this could be crippling for them. They have Wright under contract till 2020. They have a couple of young players they need to sign up. And then, obviously, look at that pitching staff. All of those guys are free agents.
Eventually, I know. I don't even like to think about it, because, people. I just want to enjoy today as a Mets fan, and people are always lamenting, like, I think we should trade Harvey now, Mike, because.
I'm sorry to rain on your parade.
No, it's all right, man. Thanks. I mean, Duda's hurt. I thought Travis d'Arnaud was gonna mark it, and he's hurt. So it is what it. I mean, hopefully he can come back. But look at Jose Reyes. It's funny. At the time, I was like, what the hell? I'm not quite sure I would keep David Wright over Jose Reyes, even though I way liked David Wright more as a player. I mean, like as a person, like.
Yeah, he's a true franchise player.
Like, yeah, he's so like with his Michael Jackson
leader.
voice. Yeah. He's good looking. And now look at Jose Reyes. Like he can't play shortstop anymore. So both of them are breaking down. Whatever.
Yeah, the story is you just never know. But this is bad news for the Mets. Hopefully they can recover. I would assume at the deadline that they're going to be looking for some depth. First base, third base.
Last year was perfect with Kelly Johnson and Uribe. Like, that was such a good little under-the-radar move. Like, obviously combined with Conforto and Cespedes. But those two guys just helped. What else would help is if we had a left-handed hitting utility player, a.k.a. Daniel Murphy. But, whatever. I mean,
the Mets wanted Zobrist in the offseason. Zobrist went to the Cubs. The Mets were rumored, as you remember, to be the favorite to land Zobrist, which that always kind of confused me. But anyway, the Mets could really use Ben Zobrist right now. A player that they could put at second base, shortstop, third, and the outfield. So that'll be a big question with the Mets.
Ben Zobies, that everybody wanted him, and he would be nice to have right now. Hopefully, David Wright's will affects something with his spine, But like I said, I miss Daniel Murphy. But then I see him make errors, and I don't really miss him. But I like him. So speaking of Murphy, he's going to play a little bit at first base because Zimmerman is having a baby, and Danny Espinosa plays shortstop because he beat Trey Turner, and Dusty likes veterans for the shortstop position in Nationals training camp, and Trey Turner is going to play second, and people are excited. Well, like, what do you think of this?
Yeah, so Trey Turner is the top position prospect in the Nationals organization. He's played shortstop going back to his days at NC State. He is going to play second base for the Nationals, which honestly, it's something that he probably can do rather easily. He's a very athletic player. Speed is by far his biggest tool. And this is an element that the Nationals need. They need a young position player up the middle to sort of, reinvigorate some life into that lineup. The Nationals, they're going to be a World Series contender, and I think, the performance of Turner will go a long way as to whether or not they're able to finally win a World Series title.
You really think so? I don't think it matters. I think it's about the future. I don't think it matters if he does well or not. I think it's just exciting to see if he's the future or not. Wait, but...
I agree. But, with Danny Espinosa at shortstop, if you have a young position player who can come in who can... add value at the plate, because Espinosa just doesn't really do that.
Right. It would be great. He's hitting 310 in AAA, I think.
Yeah, and he has 17 stolen bases in 50 games. The Nationals could use a leadoff hitter who gets on base before Bryce Harper, because, quite frankly, that lineup, while there are players that do sort of scare the opposing, pitching coach, outside of Bryce Harper, I'm really not that intimidated.
Yeah. Daniel Murphy's helped a lot, but Bryce Harper has so many more walks this year. Because I think in the Cubs series he walked something like Joe Madden walked him like some crazy number in the teens over their series, and since then he's been getting like 2 pitches to hit per game, and he's only batting .240, Bryce, but he's been walking a lot, like, but so your point is well taken that the lineup could use some depth. I mean,
yeah, and so you think about it too. If you have a player who's hitting, either first or second now, who's getting on base even an incremental amount more than what you were getting out of that position, and then a player on top of that who can steal second, in a lot of cases, then you're gonna have opposing pitching coaches having to make real decisions as opposed to, okay, there's 2 out, let's just put Bryce Harper on base because...
Right, but for today, none of this applies because Zimmerman is out and he's in. We're not upgrading Espinoza to a potential Trey Turner.
Right,
so this is talking about potentially if Trey Turner plays so well that he wins the shortstop job that he lost in the preseason. Then that's what we're discussing. But as is like today, and while Zimmerman's the first man to ever give birth, it's the lineup is downgraded currently, probably. So wait, how did they get Trey Turner?
Yeah, so Trey Turner was actually part of what you would call a blockbuster trade in terms of the prospects that were moved around.
Would you call it a blockbuster trade?
I mean, for me, like, that stuff is really exciting. Like, that moved the needle for me, but, anybody else who's not that into baseball probably doesn't even know a lot of the players in this. But so anyway, yeah. Trey Turner was drafted 13th by the by the Padres, actually, and he and Joe Ross, who's a young starting pitcher on the Nationals, who's achieved success in the major leagues already. Both of them were sent to the Nationals, as the Padres in return got Will Myers from the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, and the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, they're the ones who really took the hit on this deal. They got back Steven Souza, who's their starting right fielder. But
as the police drive by the way, if you guys could hear.
They're
they
going.
Got Souza.
Yeah, the Rays called the cops because they got robbed.
Oh, that was nice. I like that.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
So, yeah.
Wait, who else did the Nationals give up? That that left-hander Ott, it says. I don't know who this guy
Travis Ott, who's a 20-year-old left-handed starting pitcher in the organization.
As of right now, the Nationals won that trade. I mean, who knows? Yeah. Like of all three, I remember now that trade. I didn't know any of the players except Will Myers, but Will Myers had killed it that year. I think 09 or 2010. Year. He was great, man.
Rookie of the Year.
I loved him. He was
AL Rookie of the Year. Yeah. Yeah.
He's having a decent season this year, but at first base, he's way less juicy than an outfielder to me,
Yeah, it's interesting. A player that athletic, I have not been on top of the rationale behind moving him to first base, but it almost... Yeah, it might have something to do with his injuries.
I think it was also because their defensive outfield was just so bad last year, the Padres, that they were like, all right, we're all in. We got Justin Upton, Matt Kemp.
Yeah, we're just going to put out the worst defensive team possible.
Right, we're going to put all right-handed power-ish hitters in the outfield who can't really run.
In one of the biggest ballparks in the major leagues, by the way.
And give James Shields a lot of money because he's an innings eater.
Yeah, and then you saw the owner went off on the team a couple of days ago actually calling out James Shields.
Specifically?
Yeah, specifically.
I don't know about this. You mentioned it earlier.
The owner of the Padres, went on record saying something, like, I'm a competitive person and the effort that this team gave was, like, absolutely embarrassing. James Shields, he got paid a lot of money. And then he actually said something, like, guaranteed contracts in this game are a detriment because, you get paid and then look at the last couple of starts from James Shields. And in reality, it's like, your organization has really, like, just never really bought into any particular philosophy.
I wonder why an owner would say that too. It's almost as if like the money's coming out of his pocket. It's like almost as if he has an ulterior motive for not guaranteed contracts.
He wants to pay players less, Why would he want to do that?
Per home run. Yeah, right. Then he's going to owe Melvin a lot of money. So
but I mean, on a high level, like, I don't know how we got off onto the Padres track, but that's, this is the kind of stuff we like to talk about. This is an organization that clearly doesn't have a philosophy in place where the front office and the manager and the owner are on the same page, and this is what happens.
You know what else happens, man? Last night I'm so mad I forgot to even mention it. I made maybe my 6th sports bet since you and I went to Las Vegas. And I hate it when people talk about their bets. In general, it's like when somebody tells you their dream, I don't care.
Bad beat of the century.
Right, or a bad beat, right. But this, it was retarded. I had a 2-team parlay, $40 only to win 160. And it was the Reds at Colorado and the Padres at home against the Mariners. Both were winning 12-2. The Reds went final, and at 12-2, the Padres were winning, and they lost 16-13. I think that was the final. I stopped watching it 16-13, and then my bookie texted me like, "Can you Venmo me the money this morning?" It was a 10-run comeback, and they lost. It was unbelievable. It was single after single after single.
Yeah, it was death by a million paper cuts.
Yo, it was I was so mad. I felt like I was gonna throw up. Like I've never been. Nah, I have been so upset, but it was like when we went to Vegas with our horrible luck with
I mean,
Oklahoma.
You know, like, this is so interesting too. You know, this loss comes a day after those statements were made by the owner. You know,
oh, really?
Like San Diego, you know, actually, like, on our Twitter account, Cap_figure, you know, we sent out a tweet. You know, there's going to be a shakeup in the San Diego organization, I would believe.
Well,
at some
yeah,
point
if the owner is blaming the contracts, it's like, who's the person? Did you sign James Shields? It's like, who are you really yelling at for making that decision? You know, it's like,
you know,
not James Shields' fault that he got paid.
But then, you know, I blame ownership here, because AJ Preller, who's, you know, the young GM of the Padres, who made all of those, you know, big deals at the beginning of last year to land Justin Upton the year before he's a free agent, to land Craig Kimbrell, you know, he traded away some of these prospects.
Yeah, and they were not that close. It's like they were so
Matt
not.
Kemp.
It's like, okay, yeah, you do that if you're a team like the Astros, even though they picked horrible moves. You do that if you're a team that's close. You sell out the future a bit to be good right now, or like the Royals did with Brandon Finnegan last year for Cueto and stuff. You don't do that if you're the Padres and have sucked forever. You can't get that good in one offseason in baseball.
Yeah, and it's just questionable all around. Like, do you really? Why would you trade Yasmani Grandal, a switch hitting, you know, elite defensive
with
catcher,
a sick mullet, I know,
for Matt Kemp? Even if the Dodgers contributed to the salary of Kemp, you know, Kemp is a huge question mark. He had a couple of good seasons. His MVP
a couple
production,
of amazing seasons, but your point is well taken.
And again, you know, you have to know the ballpark you're playing in. They play 81 games a year in the biggest outfield, you know, one of the biggest outfields in terms of area of all major league stadiums, and yet you decide to field a team that doesn't have speed in the outfield.
Right.
Well, you know, what are you doing?
Right.
What are you doing? If you're the Yankees, you should be looking for guys who can hit for power. And, you know, Carlos Beltran is the prime example. He should be playing right field in Yankee Stadium.
So this is just real quick, the top of the 7th. It's 12-7 now. I turn it on. The base is loaded. Nelson Cruz strikes out. Then Kyle Seager singles to right. Aoki scored. Gutierrez scored. Cano to third. Lee singled to right. Cano scored. Kyle Seager to third. Oh, I'm sorry. Then they actually got what's his name to strike out. Ionetta singled to left. Seager scored. Blah blah blah. Single. It was all singles.
Yeah, I think
I'm killing myself.
Singled twice in like the same inning or something like
Dude,
that.
that's sick. I saw A-Rod hit 2 home runs in the same inning in Yankee Stadium once live.
Steroids.
Well.
Steroid era.
Steroid. So that's that with the Padres story.
Yeah,
Trey Turner.
Yeah, so the Nationals and the Padres, you know, like, this is just a prime example. One front office is able to land a number 3 starting pitcher and the number 9 overall prospect at the shortstop position, Trey Turner.
Sick.
And then, you know, the Padres got Will Myers.
How the hell do the Rays give up? I wonder if this dude will be good, but it's like, how do you give up Will Myers and you don't get the best prospects? But maybe the other guys are further away. You know, we don't know yet. It's like, it takes a long time to analyze trades. So
yeah.
And do you before we move on to your football draft, do you have anything else you want to say about this Trey Turner business?
No, you know, I really don't. I think he's an interesting player. We'll see what he can contribute. And, you know, I mean, the Nationals can definitely use a leadoff hitter. If he's able to do that, I would have to say, given the Mets' injury concerns and lack of depth at this point, I would favor the Nationals to win the division. But once you're in the playoffs, it's a different story because of the Mets' pitching staff.
So, that is that.
That's
so,
that with the Major League Baseball.
Now we're gonna get into the hypest jump off. It's almost like too good of a thing that I feel like it's our first podcast and we're gonna talk about it, but we're not gonna fully dive in. But we're gonna dive in a decent amount.
Yeah, this is honestly this is one of those things as a football nerd growing up, memorizing the back of football cards. This is the kind of thing that I dreamed of doing.
So explain the basics.
So basically, it's if you look online on Twitter or any other social media, hashtag all-time mock draft, and that's one word. Basically, it's an exercise. We have 32 different football writers, each representing an NFL team, and the premise is to go in a snake order draft and to select a full starting offensive and defensive squad.
25 picks.
25 picks. Yeah. And so CapFigure, we're representing the New York Giants, which is my hometown team. Shout out to Big Blue. Tom Coughlin, I love you.
If you're
Jerry
listening.
Reese, I don't. And so we had the 27th pick out of 32. So, obviously we got a higher pick at the start of the second round, but, it sort of forced our hand in terms of the player we picked.
Because it forced your hand because the way the board fell, you felt like we were not into the first tier of quarterbacks was already gone, right? And so at that point, your thought was like Peyton Manning. I'm going to bring up the draft right now, but Peyton Manning, Tom Brady went first overall. Aaron Rodgers.
Brady 1, Jerry Rice 2, Lawrence Taylor 3. But then quarterbacks, you have Brady, Rodgers, Manning, Montana, Elway, Unitas, Marino, Brett Favre, Steve Young, and then I picked. So Steve Young was taken actually at number 26. I picked 27. And Steve Young more than likely would have been my pick if he was still on the board.
Oh, I didn't know that, yeah.
I believe so.
I think he had the highest passer rating of all time when he retired. He's so underrated, I feel.
I agree. A mobile quarterback. I think when you look at Steve Young's prime, it's actually up there with some of the players that you would consider in the elite, like Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks.
I guess, yeah, no, I was laughing at elite. It's like, he's in the first round of the all-time draft.
Yeah, exactly. He's not that good.
He's underrated. No, but
yeah. So basically, when the board kind of shook down to me, there was really, I knew everybody was going to need to take a quarterback, and Drew Brees was there. But quite frankly, I thought that I could fill a different position with a player who is in the, again, Mount Rushmore of his position, and then pick up a quarterback later in the draft. I thought that was, the better way to get the maximum value out of my picks.
I don't even know if we've said yet that you took J.J. Watt. I want to just get
spoiler
before we
alert.
keep talking about. Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
I didn't want to.
Yeah.
So, but you're also extrapolating that. What we were talking about, that it's such an interesting pick because he's still in his prime. Maybe you could argue this upcoming season is the last of his prime, but that's going by the average football age curve, but J.J. Watt doesn't do anything average. And so I guess, it is fair to project the rest of his career this amazing because it's been this amazing. But even if it ended today, he's the type of player like Don Mattingly where it's such a sick prime that I almost wouldn't even care. I wouldn't even give you a hard time about taking him in the third round if his career ended today. But his career isn't over, and I don't know. I like the pick very much.
know he's a great player. We see these polls that say he's the number 1 player in the NFL right now, and whether he's number 1, number 2, Brady, put that aside. You know, J.J. Watt, his accomplishments in only 5 years in the league, you know, I almost was shocked seeing it. 4-time first-team All-Pro at defensive end, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year in 5 seasons.
It's
One
amazing.
season he was injured for most of the season.
And he still had like 14 sacks or something, or I think.
Yeah, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. And then there's a metric called approximate value, which is, I would say, as close to a WAR metric in football as possible. And
is it the percentage chance you're adding to a win, or
yeah.
not? Is it that exactly or no?
Value. It's based on, you know, what you produce above, you know, other players at your position. It has to do with positional scarcity.
But the number is its own scale. Like, the number is only in terms of, it's not a percent or a win. It's like each number is just relative to other numbers of that.
Yeah, exactly. They're all on the same scale.
But that's the only reason that it's that number, is what I'm asking.
Yes,
like, it's not.
yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, approximate value. So, J.J. Watt actually led the league in approximate value twice. You know, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, 4-time first-team All-Pro, led the league in approximate value twice. He is already a top 5 defensive player of all time. I think he is, you know, in the conversation with a career like Reggie White at the end of the day. And Reggie White went 5th overall in this draft.
That's what I was going to say. Lawrence Taylor went 3rd. Reggie White, 5th. Jim Brown's on offense. What am I saying? Ray Lewis went 11th. I'm just naming the defensive players that went before you. Deacon Jones went 16th. You know, he probably would have the most sacks ever before Reggie if they counted it back then. Bruce Smith, 19th. Dick Butkus, 21st. Joe Green, 23rd. Ronnie Lott, I don't like that, 25th. And then you, J.J. Watt, at 27. So, I mean, I think you're a mastermind.
Yeah, I mean, you put everything aside, when you look at J.J. Watt's numbers against, you know, 2 players that I view as comparable to him, Reggie White and Bruce Smith, he's right there.
Sean Taylor, by the way, went 4 picks later.
I mean,
after J.J. Watt, it went Bo Jackson, Derek Thomas, Alan Page, Sean Taylor, Jonathan Ogden.
And,
so,
you know, we're not even, you know, another huge theme that you'll see from me in this draft is positional versatility and scheme versatility. I'm actually trying to put out the best team that would work together on the field at once. And J.J. Watt has played for multiple different defensive coordinators in different schemes. He can play defensive end. He can play defensive tackle. He's played in a 3-4 and a 4-3 scheme, and he only catches touchdowns. To quote Chris Carter, or to quote, what was that guy's name?
Albert Einstein.
The coach of the Eagles back in the day. Rex Ryan's father. They cut Chris Carter because he only caught touchdowns, and that's what J.J. Watt does at the tight end position. No question, if he was a tight end, he would probably be right there with Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah, he seems like LeBron. Like, you could put LeBron in any sport. Like, if the aliens came down to Earth, Max Kellerman used to say, and they're like, all right, there's going to be a physical competition. We won't tell you exactly what it is. You need to send one representative to compete, or we're going to blow up Earth. We may send J.J. Watt at this point.
Yeah.
It used to be LeBron, but LeBron's, you know, a little beat up. But I think that right now you could probably say J.J. Watt and be comfortable with our future as the Earth. So let's move on, like, to the rest of the draft. We're spending a lot of time on J.J., even though he's obviously our foundation piece now for our team because he's our first round pick. So now your pick again in the second round is coming up quickly. It's a snake draft, so you pick 27th overall, and then again, what is this? What number overall? It's the 6th pick of the second round. So 10 picks later.
Yeah, 37, 38.
And you decided to take, off the board were the players I named before, and then LaDainian Tomlinson, Ed Reed, Night Train Lane, Mel Blount, Bruce Matthews, and now you're up.
Yeah, and so Bruce Matthews and the player I picked were the two that I was having trouble deciding. So thank you to the Eagles for picking Bruce Matthews and making the decision easy for me. I decided to pick Rod Woodson, who is another player that I feel like he doesn't get necessarily the recognition he deserves when you look at the actual facts and statistics of his career. Aside from being a Hall of Fame defensive back and one of the best cornerbacks in the history of the league, the positional and scheme versatility, again, Rod Woodson was one of the best kick and punt returners in the league.
Yeah, that I totally forgot about when you mentioned that. I mean, it's great.
I mean, I didn't know that. He was one of the best cornerbacks in the league for a number of years, always played on winning teams, and then later in his career he transitioned to free safety. He was a first-team All-Pro at both positions. I mean, that's not easy. You can't go from safety to cornerback, but it's not as simple as, the best corner in the league when he ages can just go to safety. It takes a special kind of player to do that. Rod Woodson is one of the smartest players in the history of the league.
What metrics do they have for that?
I mean, there's no metric.
I'm just busting your chops a bit. That's funny, though.
Yeah, and so did I want to take a defensive back? Was it a priority? Maybe not necessarily, but again, my goal was to get the best value out of each pick. And when I looked at the other positional groups in terms of the players that were taken and who was available, I sort of predicted that there would be a run on cornerbacks and pass rushers after other teams took quarterbacks. So I was trying to anticipate that and be ahead of the curve, so to say. Again, I think it's a great pick. I can put him in a bunch of different positions.
Would you say it ended up in terms of you predicting that people would start taking corners? Do you think that it worked? Because it's not that there's a bunch of defensive players coming up next, but it wasn't as if the drum roll of corners came next. So does that take away? Because with the risk, with what you're saying is very interesting. In my baseball fantasy draft, I was on the phone with you, and clearly, good starters started to go, so I had to take Cole Hamels. But it'd be great if I knew when that was happening around early and got to take him, for example, right? So that sounds like what you're saying here, that it's okay, I feel like people are going to start to feel the pressure, now want to get a good defensive back. I want to be ahead of the curve, which is genius, but then it could backfire if you find out you could have waited to get the same guy. I don't think you obviously couldn't have, but
yeah,
what do you
that's
think
a
about
risk.
How it unfolded?
That was a risk that obviously is there. Defensive backs didn't go necessarily the next picks after me, but when you look at the next round, after Rod Woodson, you have Darrelle Revis, then you have Charles Woodson, Troy Polamalu, Champ Bailey, Rondé Barber, Paul Krause, and Darrell Green all within the next round. And quite frankly, I love Darrelle Revis, I love Charles Woodson, but Rod Woodson is one of the top 3 defensive backs in the league. So I'll consider it a win
in the league's history.
Yeah. So
did you take Did Charles and Rod Woodson play on the same team in the early 2000s with the Raiders? I don't know. I feel like they may have, which is awesome to think about. Ed Reed and Ray Lewis down the road will be how are they on the same team? That's so cool. I'm gonna look it up right now.
Rod Woodson played for the Ravens.
Rod?
Yeah.
No, he played for the Raiders at the end.
Oh, he played for the Raiders as well. He played for the Steelers early in his career.
Only his last 2 years, 2002 and 2003, Rod Woodson. He went Pittsburgh from 87 to 94. No, I'm sorry, from 87 until 96 he was on the Steelers. Then he went to San Francisco for a year, then Baltimore from 98 till 2001, his age 33 to 36 season, and then his last 2 years he was on the Raiders, 02, 03. So
he was on the Ravens. He may have played on those Ed Reed teams where Dion was also a corner. Yeah, so, anyway, that was, the second round pick. I think I have 2 cornerstone players on my defense, a pass rusher, and then a defensive back. So, moving on in the draft onto the third round, I had a pretty long wait for this pick.
Yeah, and what happened in between? Like, what did you know? Did you notice any, oh, this position's going in rapid? Or I see a string of 6 defensive ends taken in a row at the end of the second round.
Yeah, absolutely. So that you hit the nail on the head there. Defensive linemen, pass rushers just came flying off the board. As I predicted, all of those people who took quarterbacks early on, they looked to that position. So we had a ton of defensive ends, defensive tackles taken off the board. But another position that was rather interesting to me was a lot of people started taking running backs. And there are a lot of guys that have been impact running backs in the league and have been elite players, especially when the league was more run-centric. But it was a little bit weird to me, some of the names being taken off the board so early at the running back position. Just like off the top of my head here, Bo Jackson as the 5th running back. I mean, I guess you can project his full career, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you get to there. I don't in the rules, but I get it. Well, Jim Brown, I 100%, I believe is the best player of all time. I think. But Barry Sanders, for Barry Sanders to go,
that's a first.
That many picks before. Where did Walter Payton go? Oh, he only went 6 picks before Walter Payton. But it is funny how that Bo Jackson and then Marshall Faulk didn't go until after your second round pick. Emmitt Smith. I wonder.
Edgerrin James.
That is unbelievable. So Edgerrin James got picked before your third round pick.
Yeah, and
that was crazy to me. He got picked before Curtis Martin, way before Curtis Martin, which I think is insane. I understand Edgerrin James had an exciting prime, but he got to play with Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison, and I don't know, man. I mean, another thing that was sort of interesting to me as I was leading up to my third pick was there really weren't a lot of wide receivers taken off the board. Yeah, I noticed that looking at this.
And I guess it can kind of make sense because I think wide receiver in today's NFL is more important than it ever has been.
So you mean over history there are less dominating ones?
I guess that's sort of the idea. Statistics maybe are a little bit less when you look back at it.
No, that's interesting. That's a good point.
But so we'll go right ahead. And my third pick, which was at the end of the third round, I took Larry Fitzgerald at wide receiver, and he was actually the 7th wide receiver off the board.
Marvin Harrison went 5 picks before you. That's crazy. Larry Fitzgerald, down the road, I believe, will be looked at as way better than Marvin Harrison. I don't mean that as a slight on Marvin Harrison, and I don't mean to be hating on the Colts, but it's pretty surprising to me that Larry Fitzgerald slipped. I think this was genius. I love J.J. Watt, and I love this pick. Rod Woodson, I didn't love as much. By the way, he was on the same team with Charles Woodson, which is cool to think about in 02 and 03. But
Woodson brothers.
I really loved it when you told me you got Larry Fitzgerald. You were thinking about Adrian Peterson at this point, no?
Yeah, actually, there were a couple of players I was tossing around. I'm not going to spoil the other ones because they're still actually on the board as this is still going on. But yeah, so I was looking. There was a running back I really liked. I knew I had another pick coming up, but this wide receiver, Larry Fitzgerald, at the spot I took him, I thought that it was unbelievable that he was still on the board. This may be my favorite pick. Larry Fitzgerald is already in the top 10 in receptions, yards, and touchdowns all time.
Well, already, I mean, his career is almost over.
Right.
But I still, no matter what, he's amazing.
If you add in, another 1,500 receiving yards, you're putting him up there in the discussion of, top 2, top 3 at each of those stats all time. And then, that's not a stretch to think about. Then he would definitely be, someone who should be picked, third or fourth at his position. Either way.
Who were the receivers taken before him besides Marvin Harrison?
Calvin Johnson, Terrell Owens, Randy Moss, Don Hudson, and Jerry Rice. Don Hudson, it's kind of hard. I can understand the pick. He was a player in his own league at that time. Rice and Moss, I think, in my opinion, are the two best receivers of all time. And then for me, I would say Larry Fitzgerald would be in the discussion of the third. And
so if you were to redo this list, tell me your order. Jerry Rice,
Randy Moss.
And then you would put Larry Fitzgerald.
And then Larry Fitzgerald.
Over even
Owens Johnson, and Harrison.
Man, Terrell Owens was so good, dude.
I think the other thing, again, I hate to keep harping on it, but positional versatility. You look at Larry Fitzgerald. He came into the league. He was a true X receiver after, putting up ridiculous numbers at the University of Pittsburgh. An interesting thing, actually, is that when Larry Fitzgerald was the wide receiver at University of Pittsburgh, Darrelle Revis was the first team starting corner, so they were going at it in practice.
Yeah, I wonder how
day.
much better. Like, that's so
how
cool. I wonder how much
that?
better they could make each other. Like, it has to help.
It definitely helps. And so when you look at him when he came out of the league, an elite playmaker, true X receiver, and what that means is, the height to go catch those jump balls, to be playing on the outside. And, when
Wait, what is that, a scouting term, like X receiver?
Yeah, X receiver, it's just in terms of the schematics when you draw up a play.
Oh.
But so as you look at his career, he sort of had a couple of years there where he fell off. 3 and 4 years ago, and people were already saying, you should consider cutting Fitzgerald. His career is over, and he's totally reinvented himself. He's moved into the slot. He's
reinvented himself by getting Carson Palmer, but
I think that helps.
Go on.
But at the same time,
joking.
when you look at the snap rates, he doesn't have the speed to beat guys on the outside, and for a player like him who's a Hall of Famer in and of itself, to move inside to the slot, to be taking routes, going over the middle, to be doing the dirty work. He's also one of, if not the best blocking wide receiver in the history of the NFL. That's something that's totally underrated.
When you say snap rate, wait, what do you mean by snap rate? Like how many snaps he's on the field for?
Yeah, so snap rate just refers to the percentage of snaps that the players on the field out of total plays, and then more specifically referring to the percentage of time he lines up in the slot as opposed to the outside.
You got Rod Woodson, and you got their Chuckles McGee. He will crush me with his palm, JJ. So now you're picking again in the 4th round. It's a snake draft, so your next pick is coming up again pretty quick, and a player you liked possibly instead of Larry was there?
Yeah, so there were 2 players I was really, 50-50 on. One was Randy White, the 7-time All-Pro defensive tackle from the Cowboys.
Yeah, I had no idea that he was a 7-time All-Pro. That's crazy.
Amazing. It's so undervalued because of the fact that the prime of his career only started when sacks were recorded as a stat. So his first couple of years where his sack totals were still a little bit lower, they don't count into that. So he's never really in the discussion with the top defensive tackles, but a 7-time first-team All-Pro, that's enough to be said.
Right.
Anyway, I decided to go with Adrian Peterson, and I really did not want to take a running back this early.
Right.
The position is devalued as a whole in the league.
Right. And this draft is to have a success in today's NFL right now. Like
exactly. But at the same time, Adrian Peterson is the most physically gifted player in NFL history, in my opinion.
I like your hot takes. That's a hot take.
I think it's a hot take. I mean,
it's
honestly,
a legit hot take. I don't blame you.
The image in my mind is that image of him from Oklahoma with his shirt off before the draft.
Dude, I picture him in a cryogenic chamber with like a gas mask looking thing on, and like a white scientist in a lab coat is like, so we're working on many things, and there's like J.J. Watt and
Adrian Peterson.
And then like a half-dying LeBron Tiger Woods hybrid, like, kill me. But Anyway, so
yeah. So
who like, I mean, it's especially crazy. Like we were talking about Edgerrin James before, that Adrian Peterson was still there, and like, you know, 3 out of your 4 picks, their careers aren't over, and I think that's what makes it you were able to get such good value, because people, it's like reverse recency bias, which is shocking to me, but I think you totally like nailed that like market deficiency, or however you want to phrase it, in this draft.
Arbitrage opportunity.
What is that?
Yeah,
what
it basically
arbitrage?
just refers to like a mispricing based on
being on the Vikings.
Comprehending information the wrong way, which I think makes a lot of sense. You know, a lot of the people playing this may have sentimental value attached to some of the players that they took, for whatever reason.
Right.
And, you know, it's like with baseball, like always the players from the generation before were always better, because as a kid, I don't want to believe that, you know, anybody could have been better than Ken Griffey Jr.
It's also hard to see the forest from the trees. Like, it's hard to... Right now, Clayton Kershaw is playing, and people think Arrieta is the best pitcher in the National League, which I disagree. But whatever, it's like hard to see the forest from the trees. It's like so much easier in hindsight, when it's in a nice bow, to look at somebody's career and be like, this is how good they were. Yeah,
exactly. And so, you know, what I was talking about with Larry Fitzgerald, where it's like, you know, if we can project another season and a half of the pace that, or even at 80% of the pace that he has shown to put up the past couple of years, when you tack that onto the career he already had, he's right up there in the discussion of top 3 wide receivers of all time. So anyway, Adrian Peterson, you know, the way I view him, true transgenerational 3-down back. And what I mean by that is Adrian Peterson would have succeeded in the 50s. Adrian Peterson would have succeeded in the 70s. He succeeds in today's NFL. And the reason for that is he is blessed with unbelievable ball carrier vision, as well as the athleticism to back that up in the running game. So he is one of the best runners in the league. But then, you know, being a running back in today's NFL, which is what this draft was, you need to be able to block and you need to be able to receive passes. Adrian Peterson has shown the capability to do both, and to do both at a very high level.
Would you say, when you talk about him being good over any generation, that's the difference, is just catching and blocking more, or is there more to it than that you think?
Yeah, I think that the game has changed so much. You know, in a lot of schemes, even I think there's teams still today that use fullbacks. What's a fullback? You know, in today's NFL, that term is basically out. You know, back in the day, a running back, you know, you were either handing him off the ball or faking to hand him off the ball.
Right, so and they knew every play it was coming, you mean, and he would still succeed in that NFL.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
you know,
right.
He is the kind of player that...
He single-handedly carried the Vikings to the playoffs 2 years ago or whatever. Like,
yeah, and then look at this year. I mean, he had a great defense, but... No,
he's an MVP. He's an MVP, man. Like, he won the MVP.
MVP as a running back in a time in the league where all of the rules are favored to the passing game.
Right.
And he was
the strategy is the passing
everything.
game.
And look, who was his quarterback?
2,097 yards, man. 131.1 yards a game that year in 2012.
Who was his quarterback? Christian Ponder?
Yeah, I think it was.
Who was their number 1 wide receiver?
God,
exactly.
I don't even know.
Exactly. It doesn't even... It's
Dookie
unbelievable. 97 career touchdowns.
Wait, so how on earth... Like, what running backs were taken before him? Because I know Edgerrin James, like, obviously I think is a joke, but that could be a troll pick, like we've talked about before. That like some of the writers may be just taking picks for clickbait versus building a good team, but mostly all of them seem to be taking it serious. Right. So, but why don't you go down the list of the running backs taken before him?
Sure. So in the first round, we had Jim Brown, Barry Sanders, Walter Payton, Gale Sayers, and then Bo Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
To start off the second round, first pick of the second round, LaDainian Tomlinson. Mm-hmm. Great pick. Marshall Faulk, Eric Dickerson, and Emmitt Smith. O.J. Simpson as well, last pick of the second round. So then you move into the third round, and you got Marcus Allen, Edgerrin James, and Thurman Thomas.
And that's all of them picked before him?
And that is all
AP,
of the players picked before Adrian Peterson.
I forget about OJ. Gale Sayers really had a short. Gale Sayers is interesting because he's similar. Like he only played 6 years, Gale Sayers, but he was so good when he played that it's like I love that debate. But I mean, I'm getting off track now. But I mean, Edgerrin James is the one that sticks out. I don't know. I'd probably definitely take Adrian Peterson over Marcus Allen. Maybe that's recency bice on my part.
No, I'm with that.
But like, where would you? Because we both agree that you got AP at a good value. Where, like, who would you move him over?
Okay, yeah, who would I move him over? So I would say at this point right now, if his career were done right now, I would probably have him picked either before or after O.J. Simpson. So, I think he has not put together the career of Dickerson, Falk, Tomlinson, Bo Jackson again. Like, that's a total outlier. But I think by the end of his career, I would say Adrian Peterson will be right below LaDainian Tomlinson and Marshall Falk.
Yeah,
I think I would take him ahead of Emmitt Smith when
definitely.
all is said and done.
I agree. I look at Emmitt Smith like a compiler almost, even though he was great. I don't mean that in a I don't know.
No, I mean, it's, football's a team sport, and when you have the Great Wall of Dallas, there's something to be said about him playing every game, but at the same time, you're right.
Marcus Allen, played in the wrong generation, though, also. It's like he caught for 300, 400 yards every year. He had 5,411 receiving yards. That's crazy.
Absolutely.
every year, what is it, minimum 27, 34, 30 receptions. His second, third, and fourth years in the league, he had 68, 64, 67 catches. That's crazy. Man, I wonder. It seems it's almost like the owner didn't like him, but that's just speculation.
Yeah, that's just speculation, and Al Davis was always making decisions totally rationally and in a calm state. So
I
psych.
Yeah, right. Give me the fastest guy. I don't care.
So where we stand, we're through 4 rounds. I like the base of my team. I don't have a quarterback. I think I'll be okay. And me. I'm uncomfortable with the fact that I don't have an offensive lineman right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're bugging.
At the same time,
you need 5 of them versus 1, like we talked about. You could have one great offensive lineman, but it's a unit. It's not. This is the point I made to you, and we talked about it, and it made sense. Is that it's not. One person makes you great. One person can be great, but you're only as good as your weakest link to some extent in an O-line.
Exactly. And another thing that I am thinking about actually right at this moment is...
Oh my God, we have a live Tom thought.
I think it makes more sense to take the skill position players and the quarterback and then decide what type of offensive lineman you want instead of vice versa. Some players are better pass blockers. Some players are better run blockers. It depends if I want to use a zone blocking scheme.
Right. Unless the draft falls to you, what happened with you with the running back. So I do understand some guys being like, oh man,
of course,
this offensive lineman,
Joe Pace,
Thomas
Jonathan
is
Ogden.
too good at this round. Joe Thomas just went. It's he's too good. I can't pass up. But right on paper going into the draft, I totally agree with. I think you have a really good mix of what you plan to do and adjusting on the fly, but I don't need to blow too much smoke up your behind. So far so good. Your team is looking good. So that should do it this week. We're gonna try to do this podcast twice a week. CapFigure.com appreciates all your support. We didn't get into Christian Yelich and Odubel Herrera. Really, really good articles that Tom wrote, that you wrote, that go in depth. They're really cool about 2 players in the next wave of young players. I love both of them. They're easy, fun to read, and an Arrieta response. And we're starting a new column. I think we're 3 days in, where our friend JD, who chooses to remain anonymous right now because he's a degenerate gambler, is making his picks every week. So look out for that.
He promised me that the reason that he was losing for a while was because of the VIG. So we're gonna try and put that in practice.
Oh my God.
We have a spreadsheet actually online, and we'll track his picks.
What a crazy guy! Like he really thinks he can be a pro at it. Whatever. He can. He's good. He knows baseball. That's so funny. So anyway, tweet at us. We want you guys to get involved. We'll talk about whatever, if it's within a range of sanity. Ask Cap. Hashtag Ask Cap.
You can also get at us on Twitter at Cap_figure. We also have a Facebook page. We're on Instagram. Just go on Google, type in CapFigure Sports, and you'll see right there anything you need to know. We really thank you for tuning in. This has been great. We've been talking about this for a long time. There's great energy behind this site, and we thank you again for listening.
Yeah, dog. Peace.
Macho,